Let's bring in retired Rear Admiral Mark Montgomery. He served more than 30 years in the Navy as a nuclear-trained surface warfare officer. He is a senior fellow now at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Admiral, great to have you on the program. Thanks for joining us and helping us through this breaking news, really, as this develops throughout the day. A lot has happened today. We've heard the vice president said before about this regime. There are a lot of competing minds that they are negotiating with. Some people want to make a deal with the U.S., some people a bit more hardlined. A regional source, though, texted me this today. I think Iran is trying to get more stuff. What do you think is going on? You think that we're dealing with people who are not on the same page, or is Iran trying to get more stuff last minute?
So I think the fact that they were leaking, a kind of a false narrative through their Iranian propaganda to, their news outlets in Iran tells me they were trying to stake out a far position that they could then request a few, sweeteners as relief. And, obviously they're going to try, they're negotiating. They're expert negotiators, as anybody from the Bush, Obama, Trump, or Biden administrations will tell you. So they're trying to get a slightly better deal. But President Trump's right. He needs to have the discipline and the patience that he's shown over the last weeks to not make a deal that's in the worst interest of the United States or international maritime law or the future existential security of Israel, the United States, from nuclear weapons. And I'm hoping that's why we're holding the line here and we don't agree to anything that doesn't solve all the issues we need to resolve.
So according to a White House official who told me this morning, this is where they stand in terms of what they believe that Iran has agreed to. And some of the things include that all nuclear material will be destroyed and removed. That's a big one. And the nuclear program will be dismantled. This is a performance-based deal, according to the White House, right? That's according to how they see it. It's performance-based. But once these accounts are unfrozen and Iran starts to get some of this money back into its coffers, how do we hold them accountable? Do we keep our ships there in the Strait?
Well, first, the good news is we've removed their air defense capabilities, and as it comes back, we can identify it quickly so that we will not have trouble imposing cost on them with Israeli Air Force and U.S. Air Force assets. So do I think we'll have to keep some things in theater? Yes. But we always maintain 3 or 4 fighter squadrons and a handful of ships in theater during steady state conditions. The Israeli Air Force is obviously right over the horizon there. So my thought process is over time, we could have a reduction in the U.S. military footprint, but there's probably going to have to maintain some level of deterrent force. It says if you do something outside of the rule set of this memorandum of understanding or an eventual agreement, then we will hold you accountable. And the good news is the 40 days of strikes really did a lot of damage to their future ability to produce things. Their defense industrial base was heavily damaged, and their current air defense systems were heavily damaged and are not functional.
Admiral, as far as we know, there is no deadline on this memorandum. Let's say it is signed. Let's say they sign it in Europe, and the vice president is able to be there and sign this along with his Iranian counterparts. Should there be a deadline to hold them accountable to get them to the next part, which would be the longer-term deal?
Well, I think there should be a number of timelines in it that they have to meet, and the timelines are associated with how fast you can get normal shipping restored in the northern transit scheme. The United States is already controlling the southern transit lane through the Strait of Hormuz. And as you've reported, a significantly higher number of ships have been coming through each week over week over week. Not yet at the previous rate, but they should get the northern line through. And then in addition, movement on how forces and whoever enters in order to demobilize what's left of the nuclear system, inspect for the remains of the highly enriched uranium, and ensure the proper termination of their nuclear program.
Let me just get this in with you before I let you go, Admiral. The U.S. announced that it's beginning a scale down of available aircraft to NATO in Europe, and it comes at the heels of this big announcement from the UK defense minister stepping down, complaining that the country is not putting up enough cash for its defense. What does that say to you? Do you think people over there are waking up that they have to put up more to defend themselves?
Well, I'd say it has to do with how close you are to the threat. If you're in Eastern Europe, you're already spending 5%,
Right.
like in the Baltic states and in Poland, they're at 5%. Germany in the middle there, they're starting to spend a lot more, and that's a big economy. But we still have laggards, Spain, Portugal, even France and the UK at barely over 2%. They all need to get moving rapidly towards the 3.5% that they agreed to with Secretary Rutte, the NATO Secretary General, and President Trump earlier this year. And once they start to get there, they'll be able to provide those quantitative forces that will replace the U.S. forces that might get pulled. We should not pull forces until they've got theirs on the level so that we can deter Russia.
Okay. Admiral Mark Montgomery, great to have you on this Friday. Have a great weekend. We'll see if there's any news over the weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.